Good evening, and welcome to the Not So Perfect Bigfoot Show. Tonight, I have on a dear friend, and I'm very proud to call him my friend, Terry Windell. If you haven't already checked him out, please check him out on Rock Hill Bigfoot on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Rock Hill Bigfoot. His wife also has her own page. We're going to get in that too. Give her a plug because she's a great lady. Terry, you have been in this for how many years?
Oh, good Lord. Officially, probably about 10 years. And I say officially because I had some stuff happen on my grandmother's farm way back when I was 10, 11 years old. And I'll be glad we'll talk about that in a minute if you want to. But I've been doing this, my first real, what I consider real Bigfoot outing, when I actually went out with some people who sort of knew what they were doing. That was about coming up on 10 years ago now. That was up in North Carolina in the Uwharrie National Forest. And I got a story to tell you about that as well.
Yeah.
But I've researched now. I've been in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, even made a trip out to Oklahoma to see a good friend of mine. I think you had Arla on the show.
I did have Arla on the show. You've also did a lot of public speaking.
I have. I just have kind of fallen into that. It wasn't really what I intended to do. It still to this day amazes me that people want to hear me talk about this subject. I'm just a guy in the woods who had some stuff happen to him when he was a kid, and took all this time to figure out what it was. And I'm trying to get answers, and people will ask me questions, what about this? What about that? A good many of the times I have to answer, I don't know, because I don't know. That's what I'm doing in the woods, is I want to know.
That's an honest answer too. I've actually been at a couple of Bigfoot conferences where I've heard you speak, and your delivery is very well, and you keep people interested, and that's because you convey yourself in such a way you can actually feel your experience. And you're a great speaker.
Well, thank you. Good heavens.
Well, I just want to say this. When I go out in the field with you, you are like one of the best people to have at a campfire. Your stories, your humor, your personality it knocks it out the ballpark. And I've always enjoyed going out with you. I met you through my husband, and we have been to some pretty cool places and had some pretty cool stuff happen. And we'll get into that later. But let's start where your journey begins.
Okay, well, let's go back to my grandmother's farm back when I was about 10 years old. I'm going to show you a map of what my grandmother's farm looked like. This is about a 2,000-acre generational farm. At that point, if you lived anywhere around any of this green area, you were either a relative or a friend of a relative. So we knew each other. I'm not going to tell you where it is, but it's in South Carolina. That red circle that you see is where my grandmother and grandfather's house was. My grandfather had passed away long ago by the time I got on the scene. And so we called this the home house. That's where we would always go to celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas and all this stuff growing up. And we had a family garden plot there. And the family could go and, throughout the summer and the fall and spring, and plant stuff, harvest stuff. And that was how you filled your freezer and kind of ate a lot of times. But it was a lot of work. You had to go work the farm. So I started out at a young age going and spending time on this farm. And this was back long ago when there was no internet. We had these things called books, and you had to read them. You couldn't just Google search stuff. So I had no idea what was going on, but I would always, the farmhouse, the home house, was an old, what you would imagine a Norman Rockwell painting farmhouse, old style farmhouse, tin roof. Things probably, I don't even think much of it's there anymore, but the thing was probably over 100 years old when I was there, when I was 10. and had an upstairs where the bedrooms were. No, certainly no air conditioning. Everything was heated with pot-bellied stoves or fireplaces. You had no curtains on the windows because the driveway, excuse me, the driveway was a quarter mile long, and nobody was at the time. There was nothing out there but just farm. There were stars there that we don't have here. It was just amazing. But so in the summertime, when it got warm, you just open the windows and hope you got a cross breeze at night to cool you down. And I would lay there in the bed, and I would hear, you'd hear noises. You'd hear bobcats. You'd hear turkeys. You'd hear. We had cattle on the farm, so I know what cows sound like. I know what bobcats sound like. I know what rabbits screaming in panic sound like. Red foxes, I know what that sounds like. A red fox, if you don't know what that is, a little tiny red fox will make a noise that, if you're not familiar with that noise, will make you think there's an 800-pound monster about to come out of the woods and eat your face off. So, I knew all that stuff, but occasionally I would hear these sounds that I couldn't figure out what they were. It was kind of a cross between a woman screaming and a roar, and it would go on back and forth in the night. And it was way off, out in the woods. And I would lay there and think, what is that? I don't know what that is. That's not a cow. That's nothing I'm familiar with. And again, we didn't have the internet, so I couldn't Google stuff. So I didn't know what was going on. And every time I loved walking in the woods. It was back when a 10-year-old could go walking in the woods by himself. You could do that. I knew pretty much where I was going because I grew up there, spent a lot of my childhood years there. And this property had 3 springs, 4 streams, and a pond, and pretty much any kind of wildlife you could imagine, anything but bear. And we didn't have coyotes at that point. They hadn't made it this far east. But I kind of knew early on how to take care of myself in the woods and find my way around a little bit. But every time I go out in the woods, I get this feeling like somebody was watching me, like I wasn't alone. And it wasn't like a creepy feeling like, oh, we're going to come snatch you up or something's going to eat you. It was just like, if I turned around fast enough, I'd see somebody duck behind a tree or duck down behind a hill or something like that. And I never saw anybody. I never could figure out what that was. So that, coupled with the weird noises, I didn't know quite what was going on. And again, this was before the Patterson-Gimlin film had come out and become a thing. It was right before that. So, as a kid, I had read some books about the legend of Bigfoot and all this stuff, but that's out in California. He's not here. That's just, and there's probably 1 or 2 of them. And, they're just over in California and Oregon, and, nothing's here. So one day, I was done with my chores, and I asked my mom if I could go for a walk down to the closest spring, which was probably not quite a half mile away down in the woods. It was a hot day, and I said, well, can I pack a ham sandwich and go down to the spring and cool my feet off? And, she said, sure, just, the rule, just be back an hour before sunset. Yes, ma'am. So I took off walking, and at the time there was some pulpwood harvesting going on here as well. Most of the green that you saw in that picture was old growth forest. So, there's some places there that it's kind of almost like being up in the mountains, except it's flat. But so I just took off walking down this access road that had been cut for pulpwood harvesting. And there's a fence on my right, and beyond the fence is cow pasture. So I'm walking through the woods, and I had been down this path I don't know how many times. I've been to the spring I don't know how many times. It's no big deal. But I'm walking along, and I got that feeling again that, somebody's watching me. This is weird. Okay, well, that's just must be what it feels like to be me walking in the woods. I don't know what it is. So I kept walking, and I came to a pine tree. and it was probably about the size of my leg, and it was snapped off about 8 feet up. And I looked around and it's like, wow, that's strange. We hadn't had any storms here that I'm aware of, and nothing else around it is broken. I don't see any, don't see anything. That's weird. But sometimes trees in the woods just break or fall. So okay, no big deal. So I keep walking and I go on down a little further down the road, and I come to another one, snapped off the exact same way. And it's the top is just laying there. And it's like, okay, this is really odd now. I don't quite know what's going on here, but
You were how old again?
I think I was about 10, maybe 11 at that point.
Okay.
So I'm starting to think, okay, I'm not quite sure what's going on here, but I'm going to keep going. And again, the whole time I had this feeling, somebody else is here. I don't know who, I don't see anybody, I don't hear anybody, but it's just like when you walk into a dark room that's crowded and you can just feel like somebody's there sometimes. That's what it feels like. So I keep going and I find a thorn pine tree. Only this one is not just snapped off, it's pulled up out of the ground and jammed in upside down in the hole with the root ball still on top of it. At that point, I decided I might not need to go to the spring that day. So I just got this feeling that it's like, yeah, I need to go back to the house. So, excuse me. So I went back to the house, no clue what was going on. Told my mom about it. Later on, told an uncle about it, and it was like, oh man, whatever. So that's what first got me interested. Then probably, I guess, about a year after that, the Legend of Boggy Creek came out. And I knew exactly what was going on this farm. Matter of fact, my grandmother's house, there's a scene in Legend of Boggy Creek where the creature reaches through the window from the outside on the porch and grabs the lady on the shoulder. My grandmother's front porch was a carbon copy of that front porch. It was a big southern wraparound front porch. The windows were always open. There were no screen. Well, there were few screens, but most of the time they were up. It took me 2 years to go back in the woods, let alone sit near anything on the ground floor that was near a window. It freaked me out so bad because I knew exactly now what's going on. But over the course of those 2 years, I started thinking, well, I really like being in the woods. Nothing has hurt me yet. And if this is what's out there, it could have snatched me up anytime it wanted to, but it hasn't. So I need to get over this fear, and I need to get back in the woods and because that was my playground. I mean, I just enjoyed it. And so it took a while, but I eventually got up the nerve and go back walking. And I learned early on to do this thing called talking to the woods. Where if you're walking along and you get this weirded out feeling, I just talk to the woods and I'll just say, hey guys, if you're there, I mean you no harm. I'm just passing through or whatever. Just whatever. And it does two things. First of all, it actually makes you feel better because you're speaking out loud, and it kind of gives you a little bit of confidence in yourself. Chases away the willies, I guess, so to speak.
Yes,
but
it's a comfort. It's a
it
comfort.
is. It's comfort. But I've come to learn if we do have large friends around, somehow or another, they can understand what our intentions are. So it helps if you just tell them, hey, guys, I'm just here hanging out. I don't mean any harm. If you want to hang around, that's fine. I'm not going to bother you, and I know you won't bother me if I don't bother you. So, and if I get too close, let me know. And there have been some times I've been too close and they've let me know in a very, very nice way, like, you need to back up. And when I did, the whole situation calmed back down again. So, that's actually where in my logo, I've got as my motto, respect is key. If there is, and I truly believe that, I learned that from Arla Williams, good friend of mine.
In the chat. Hey, Arla.
Yep.
Hey,
Oh, hey, Arla. If we have respect for each other, there'll be no problems. So you just got to remember when we're in the woods, we're in their house. And you wouldn't like it if somebody came in your house that you didn't know, sat down on your couch, put their muddy feet up on your table, brought in some fast food and started trashing up your place. You'd be upset about that. Well, kind of the same thing with them. We're in their house. We need to be respectful and mindful that they live there and that we're just visitors. So that's kind of the attitude that I've adopted. Hey, Arla, how you doing? And it seems to have suited me. It served me pretty well. I have been close enough on times. In all fairness and full disclosure, I have never seen one walk out of the woods in daylight or anything like that. I've seen some shadows with some glowing eyes that move through camp or in the bushes or something, but I have never actually seen one. So all this stuff is I'm basing all this on what other people have told me, but I've been in some close enough situations that if something would have wanted to hurt me, it could have easily snatched me up and I wouldn't be here tonight, but it hasn't. So that's kind of where I came from.
I'm sorry, Swamp Kitty's trying to crash the show. I got the water bottle. So
Hello, Swamp Kitty.
She already got my feet, and I was trying to keep a straight face. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When you saw the tree with the the roots sticking up, what do you think those mean?
I'm not sure. And again, here's a lot of my answers will probably be I don't know. I don't mind saying that because I'm not going to make stuff up. That's part of being out in the woods and trying to learn stuff. I have heard that means, hey, don't come this way. And given the feeling that I got, I think there's probably some truth to that. So I don't know exactly why, but I think that's a kind of a sign like we're not accepting company today, something like that. Or this area is off limits right now. So again, respect that. Don't go that way.
And that's where you were going when I interrupted you, but I have a short memory short attention span and a short-term memory. So I had to get it out there, but you just carry on. You were talking about where they have given you signs to kind of chill out and get away.
Yeah, there was a really good one. I was up in was doing a speaking at a festival, the South Carolina Bigfoot Festival in Westminster, South Carolina. If you haven't been and you're anywhere near Westminster, go to that. That's a really fun one. But they were the event staff put all the speakers up in a house. They had made enough money from previous festivals that they could actually put us up in a house during the festival at night, so we didn't have to pay the hotel fees or anything. So this was a gorgeous house. It was up in the woods, up around Westminster, South Carolina. If you've never been to Westminster, glowing eyes. Yeah, I'm headed there right now. We were all kind of chilling out the first night after the festival was over. They had a big fire pit at this house, and we were all the speakers and some of the staff were sitting around just kind of relaxing. It was a beautiful evening, fall night. The moon was coming up, and it got on probably about 11:30 or 12, and we were kind of winding down. And I look up, and there's this trail that goes off into the woods right near where we are. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm a Bigfoot field investigator. There's a trail. I'm gonna go for a walk. So I stood up. No headlamp, no flashlight, no nothing. I just stood up and said, "Hey guys, I'm gonna go for a walk." Behind me, I've got a very good friend, Michael Cook, who is also a Bigfoot researcher, who was there as well. And from behind me, I start walking. From behind me, I hear Michael's voice say, "Well, Terry is clearly crazy, but I'm going with him." So we take off walking down this trail. Never been down this trail before. I have no clue where it goes, but we're walking down the trail, and it's a little kind of windy and up and down a few hills. Nothing really major. And we probably get, I don't know, maybe 7,500 yards down this trail. And we're just kind of standing there quiet, and we hear dogs go off. The trail runs, basically the trail runs from east to west. The house we were staying at would be at the east end, and the end of the trail went to the west. And at this point, we don't know where the trail goes. So we hear dogs just starting to go crazy down at the way far end, the western end of the trail. And if you've done any Bigfoot stuff, you know sometimes that's an indicator that something, even if it's not Bigfoot, that's an indicator something is moving around. So Michael and I just kind of both looked at each other in the dark and said, "You want to chill for a minute?" And, "Yep, let's just stand here and see what happens." So dogs, if you've been around dogs enough, you learn dogs have different barks. They have a "Hi, how you doing?" bark. They have a "I don't know what you are" bark, and they have a "You're not supposed to be here and you're scaring me, so I'm gonna come eat you" bark. These dogs were going nuts. I mean, it was just, they were like something was chasing them almost, but it wasn't. And in all this barking, all of a sudden, Michael and I are standing there, and we hear this. I can't even come close to it. No human being could have made this sound. The lung capacity just could not do it. Both of us look at each other and just start giggling like little girls. And it's like, dude, that's a squatch. That's a squatch. I've heard, I know what that is. That's a squatch. And he's like, yeah, that's a squatch. Oh, cool. That's a squatch. Let's hang out here. Okay. All right. Let's see what happens. So the dogs start, the dog barking starts coming up the trail toward us, which means whatever it is coming our way. So, the next pack of dogs at the next house would go off, and it gets kind of, it passes us, and we're still standing in the same spot in the woods, just listening to see what goes on. It's dark. The moon has come up, but it's dark. We have no flashlights, no headlamps, no IR, no nothing. We're just in the woods, and the dog barking goes past us and goes on up back to the east. And we're standing there, and the dogs are going crazy up to the east. And all of a sudden, from back down in the west again, we hear another. And I look at Michael, and he looks at me, and I said, "That's Big Daddy calling the kids home." He said, "Yep." So sure enough, the dog barking reverses, comes back from east to west, goes past us, and stops. So we're like, well, they've been out roaming around for the night. They're done. Let's go back to camp. So we go back to camp, and on the way back, we're talking amongst us, and it's like, okay, do we tell the rest of the people back at camp, or do we see, do we not say anything and see if they tell us that they heard something, or, what do we do? And he said, yeah, you know what? Let's not say anything. Let's just see what they say. Well, of course, as soon as we got back, they said, man, where were you guys? Did you hear all the dogs going off and everything? And we looked at each other and went, yes, we did. Did you guys hear the squatch in the middle of that? And they said, no. So it was like, okay, well, we got something going on here. So now the question became, do we tell the festival folks? Because they're going to look at us and go, yeah, you're speaking at a Bigfoot festival, and you were staying in a house in the mountains, and you had a Bigfoot stuff go on. Yeah, right, sure, yeah. But I've gotten to be pretty good friends with the festival director, and I said, I tell you what, let me just kind of approach the subject real kind of from a slant, not go directly at it, and let's see what they say. So we got in the next morning, which was a Saturday, and we were getting all set up for the festival. We were going to speak on that day. And I just went up to the festival leader guy and said, just out of curiosity, any strange stories ever come out of that house area where we were? He got this big grin on his face, and his eyes got wide, and he said, yeah, tell me. And I said, we had something go on. He said, we set you up. That area has all kinds of activity. We didn't want to say anything. We wanted to see if you guys would have anything happen, because we knew that at some point, at least one of you was going to go wandering around in the woods. He said that area has got all kinds of activity. So there you go. So I was supposed to go home Saturday night, but I called my wife and said, sweetheart, I love you very much. And could I stay over one more night? Because we had some weird stuff happen. And she said, and I love my wife very much. Oh my gosh, my wife puts up with stuff. She just looks at me and goes,
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. She just looks at me like, well, it's just fine, whatever. So second night comes and we're going to go out walking again. So things are getting kind of quiet. We wait again. The moon's coming up, and there were a bunch of people that had shown up at the house. Apparently word had gotten around, and there was just a bunch of noise going on and people running around with flashlights everywhere. And I was like, oh man. I looked at my buddy Michael, and he looked at me and he's like, yeah, let's just sit and wait a while. I said, yeah, that's fine. So we kind of waited for all that to die down, and he and I just kind of slipped off down the trail again. Now, this trail, I think I can show you. This is what the trail looks like headed down. And if you notice, at this point in the trail, there's a little rise sort of over toward the right, about midway down. You see this. It looks like the trail kind of hooks around a corner. That's actually a dip in the trail, we found out later. And you can't see what's on the other side of that. Also, if you notice there's a couple of trees over to the left-hand side that are right by the trail that fork, kind of make a little V right there. So this is a daylight view, and we're out again at night. We're walking down this trail. We get to this point, the dogs go off again. Everything is happening again. We hear the yell from down at the far end of the trail. So we're like, okay, let's go a little further and see what happens. So we start walking, and we get to the point where this view is from right now. And all of a sudden, I get this feeling that I've never had this before in my life. It's not what you hear people talk about, getting zapped, where it's like you get this fight or flight response and you get nauseous and all that stuff. It wasn't that. It was like if you touched your tongue to a 9-volt battery as a kid and you got that little jangle thing. It was kind of like that. So I'm just like, I froze, and that started in my chest at my heart and radiated out through my entire body down to my toes and fingers. And I'm standing there like, whoa, I have never had this happen in my life. And I stopped dead in my tracks. And Michael was right beside of me, and he said, what? And I said, I don't know, man, but something weird's going on. I got this feeling like, and before I could say it, he said, electricity? And I said, yeah. He said, I got it too. I said, okay. This is odd. Now I'm going to switch back to another picture for you here. This is the trail at night where we were. And if you notice, you can't really see it in this picture, where that hump in the trail was. Then this is not a picture. This is a recreation that I did just to kind of help people visualize. There is what appears to be a Head and Shoulders silhouette that was not there the night before. And while we're standing there, Michael said, look down the end of the trail. Do you see? And I said, outline. And he said, yeah. I said, I don't think that was there last night. He said it wasn't. So then if you look over to the right, or I'm sorry, to the left on this picture, where those forked trees are, you see these kind of orangey red glowing eyes. That's what we saw. And I said, okay, I think we're too close. We got too close to something. let's do an experiment. You game? He said, yeah. Michael said, yeah. I said, okay, let's back up about 5 or 6 steps. He said, okay. So we backed up. I said, don't turn around. Let's just back up. So we backed up. On the 5th step, boom. It was like it went away. Just like a switch got flipped. So now we're standing there and it's like, okay, this is something going on here. I said, okay, we definitely got too close. Let's do another experiment. Are you good? He said, oh yeah, that's fine. I said, I tell you what, you stay here. I'm going to walk back to the spot that we were at and let's see what happens. Before I started walking, I just talked to the woods. Now, these eyes are still there the whole time. I just walked to the woods and said, or talked to the woods rather, and said, okay, guys, we think we got too close to something. Don't know what or why, but we just want to make sure we understood what you were telling us. So my buddy, I give you my word, my buddy is going to stay right where he is. And I promise you, I am going to stop. I'm going to walk forward to where I was before, and I'm going to come no closer. If your message was that we were too close, do what you did a minute ago to both of us, just to me and not to him. Here I go. So Michael's standing still. I'm walking forward. The minute, I mean, the instant I take that last 6th step or 5th step, bam, electricity back again. I mean, it was crazy. I said, okay. And I said out loud, okay, we get it. We got too close. We're going to back up. We just, we'll leave you alone. Matter of fact, we're just going to go back and crash out because it's getting late. So thank you so much. And sorry that we disturbed anything, and we'll be on our way now. So that was one of my experiences with iGlow. And I actually had to call Arla on that one and say, what in the heck just happened to me? Because I have never had that happen before. And she told me, she said, oh, we have stuff out here. People will get to a certain spot on a trail and just start laughing and have no idea why they're laughing. And then as soon as they walk away from that spot, it stops. She said, that's just something they do. And she said, you did the right thing. You told them sorry and back up. And so, if you don't, I have no problem if people doubt any stories that I tell them, because a lot of these things, had I not been there and I was telling me this, I wouldn't believe it either. Sometimes it's just amazing.
Yeah. I'm going to tell myself, when you talk about that energy you feel, I felt it once, and I'm going to tell you what it reminded me of. And I'm going to tell on myself, it's okay if y'all laugh, because I weren't laughing at the time. But, when I was in 1st grade, my 1st grade teacher told us not to stick anything in the outlet in the wall. So I decided to be a little smart aleck. I can't believe I'm telling this. So I went over there and I licked it, and it shocked me. And it was nothing like the way she shocked me with that paddle. But anyway, that's what it's similar like to me. I'm sorry, but I just totally get what that feels like.
No. That's we hairless humans are a little thick skull sometimes. Sometimes we just have to learn by being silly. So, I just chalk it up to, well, now I know. So I know now when I'm out in the woods, when I start getting that feeling, I kind of call it the tinglies, like your hair stands up and your skin's kind of electric or something. I know what that is. So it doesn't bother me as much. And I've been out with you and Johnny before and have had that happen and talked to the woods. And again, you just tell them, hey guys, mean no disrespect, no harm. And typically you don't have any problems. One of the things people will ask me a lot of times, well, you hear stories about Bigfoot ran me out of the woods. He was throwing rocks and he was doing all this stuff. And I tell people, well, what were you doing? Because again, you're in his house. So were you between him and a food source? Did Mrs. Bigfoot send him out to the grocery store to get food for the kids? And you're between him and the stream where he normally trout fishes and, grabs trout. He can't get there. And you guys out there that are married, if you've you know very well when your wife sends you to the grocery store for something, you better not come home empty-handed, and you better come home with what she sent you for. So Mr. Bigfoot at that point is like, I can't go back without this. I got to get these people out of the way so I can get to the stream. So it's kind of like think about things from a different perspective, not from your perspective, but from their perspectives. And if you start doing that, you start seeing things a little differently, and you realize, it's not all about us. There's a lot more going on that we don't know about. And again, that's why I'm in the woods. And if people disagree with what I'm saying or my beliefs about what Bigfoot is, I'm okay with that. As long as I'll talk to anybody about stuff, as long as it's a respectful conversation, as long as you're not slamming somebody or, because I can always learn something from somebody, even if it's how not to do a thing. So I have no problems with that. Just because we think differently doesn't mean we can't still be friends and go hang out and eat pizza. It just means we have differences of opinion, and that's okay.
I want to go back to your wife. When we were out in the field one day, I was just throwing questions at you like a little 3-year-old trying to, pick your brain. I asked you a question, and the answer you gave me was, out of any questions I've ever asked, your reply, hands down, was the best, most heartfelt. I asked you, what does your wife think of you out in the woods chasing a big hairy man? And you said,
yep. I remember that one. Excuse me. Yep. My wife and I were childhood sweethearts and got separated after junior high school, and kind of got back together again years and years later, and ended up getting married. And she's here with me in Rock Hill now. And when I knew that we were getting serious and that it was, I'm going to ask her to marry me. I've already talked to her dad and all this stuff. And it's like, man, I got to tell her what I do. I got to tell her. And this is going to be a make or break thing. I'm just, what am I going to do? So I took her to this restaurant because I figured she couldn't yell at me too loudly in a public restaurant. So we're sitting there and talking, and I kind of got serious and said, sweetie, I love you. And I've always been honest with you about everything. There's something I got to tell you. And she got this look on her face like, and I said, yeah, I'm not sure how you're going to feel about this, but I got to tell you, I do Bigfoot field research. I go out in the woods and I look for Bigfoot. And she just sat there and stared at me for a skinny minute. And I'm thinking, well, we're done. And all of a sudden, she got this big grin on her face and said, Terry Windell, is that all? Is that all? I thought you were some kind of axe murderer or running from the law or something. And oh my gosh, is that all? Tell me about it. That sounds amazing. So
she said, if you believe, that's good enough for her.
Yep. She has been with me on a couple of occasions and has not had anything really definitive happen yet. We did have something happen up in North Carolina where we got growled at, but I've come to think that's probably going to be a mountain lion based on where we were and the sound of what we heard. So, it'd be great if I could say definitively, oh yeah, that was Bigfoot. We didn't see anything. We were sitting out behind our tent. At the time, we had a Labradoodle named Bunny that my wife had brought and I had inherited. Bunny adopted me. Bunny was camping with us. And as soon as we got there, Bunny took off running down through the woods, down to this creek that I knew where it was, and just yelping and carrying on. And I thought, oh, Lord, I'm going to have to go. Oh, this is not going to be good. Well, we started setting up the tent, and a few minutes later, Bunny came tearing back up the hill, sat down at the tent door, and just looked at me, and that was her saying, I want to go inside. So I unzipped the tent. She went in, and she stayed in the tent and would not come out. And usually when I'm out camping, I kind of do this thing called trying to do, I try to set up myself as bait, put my tent somewhere where, if I was Bigfoot and I wanted to watch these people, where would I feel safe watching them from and not be seen or be in the open? I look for those spots, and that's where I set my tent up.
High ground.
And we were doing that, and so we were sitting out behind our tent that night, looking down this trail that went sort of in the direction that Bunny had gone down to the stream, and got to see some blue ghost fireflies. If you've never seen those are gorgeous. It looks like a scene out of Avatar. But we're just sitting there, and Bunny's in the tent and has been, and she's on her blanket and has not moved. And it's getting late, so I stand up. I just said to my wife, well, I think it's going to be a quiet night. Nothing seems to be going on. You ready to go crash out? She said, yeah. I stood up out of my chair. As soon as I stood up, we heard off from the bushes to one side of us. And we couldn't see anything. So I just stood there for a second. I said, did you heard that, right? And she said, yeah, I did. I said, Bunny's in the tent, right? And she said, yeah. So we know it's not her. So we just got growled at by something. So at the time, I was thinking, okay, could have been a Bigfoot. But the more I listened to the mountain lion, and I know Uwharrie's got mountain lions. Even the Forest Service tells you they don't. There's mountain lions there. Plenty of people have seen them, got pictures of them.
Found the tracks.
Yeah, found the tracks. Yeah, they're there.
Yeah, found the tracks. Yeah.
They are there. So looking back on that, I got to chalk that one up to could have been a mountain lion. Didn't see it. Don't know what it was. So I can't say definitively because that's not good research.
Well, let's go, since you're on Uwharrie, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you got the rock thrown at you, right?
Yes, it is. It is.
And that goes with a lot of other things that have happened there, but we'll get into that. Let's talk about the rock.
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't think they throw rocks to hit us. I think that's a way of kind of getting our attention, almost like seeing what we'll do. If they wanted to hit us, they could bean us like a Major League Baseball player throwing a fastball anytime they wanted to. So I was up in Uwharrie with a couple of good friends, and this was the very first time I had ever been out doing official Squatch stuff. I had no idea what to do. I'm with these guys, a gentleman named David Pardue, another gentleman named Dave Moser, and they had been doing this for some time. We had met and decided that all of us were not axe murderers. None of us we were all safe to go out in the woods with. So they invited me to go out with them on this trip, and I said, sure. Now, at this point, all I've ever seen is the TV shows where you go out stomping through the woods in the middle of the dark and, roaming around and doing all these calls and tree knocks and all this other stuff. So I'm sitting there, and it's getting dark, and I'm thinking, well, we're not doing anything yet, but this is their gig, not mine. I'm just going to sit here and observe and learn. And it gets dark. We're sitting around the campfire, and it's getting on towards, I guess 8:30 or 9. And then keep in mind, we are in a campsite in Uwharrie. We're not out in the middle of the woods. We're at a campsite. And so we're sitting there, and I said, so guys, it's been kind of I'm thinking, nothing's going to happen. I don't know what's going on. I said, guys, it's been kind of a long day for me. I've been at work, and I think I'm just going to crawl in my tent and call it a night. And David looked at me and said, wait. I said, what do you mean wait? He said, just wait. I said, well, okay. So I'm thinking, all right, well, I'll wait. So gets on towards, I don't know, probably 11-ish or so. And I'm thinking, I don't know about these guys now. I don't know what's going on here, because we should be out with thermal imaging and stuff, walking around through the woods. I don't know. So I said again, well, guys, again, I think I'm going to go crash out again. And David looked at me again and said, wait. And I said, well, when are we going to like go out through the woods and wander and go look for stuff? Because I thought that's what you did. And he said, no, we just sit. We make a fire. We sit. We just sit around and chat. If they're here, they'll find you. You don't want to go walking through the woods at night. You're going to step in a gopher hole or something and break your leg or fall off a ravine. And he said, just wait. Not probably 25 minutes after that, we're sitting there and we hear this thump. Here comes a rock getting thrown into our campsite. And we actually have video. David shot the video on his night vision or his FLIR, and I was recording audio, and I matched the two up, and we've got video of that, of the rock actually being thrown into camp. You can see it because it is white hot, and it comes in from the left-hand side of the video and flashes across the screen and hits the ground. And so on the video, I think that's on my Rock Hill Bigfoot site, but I'm not sure yet. I'll have to go check. I've just started. That's one of the drawbacks of being in the woods all the time is in shooting video is you don't ever, if you're editing video, you don't have time to be in the woods. So I've got a bunch of stuff I've still got to edit after all these years. But anyway, so he actually walked David actually walked Dave in on the rock using his FLIR because he scanned around and you could see the rock on the FLIR because it was glowing white hot. Everything else around it was just regular temperature. This thing was hot because it had been in somebody's hand. And because this rock came sideways, not straight down, your first thought is, okay, what else in the woods of North America throws rocks besides us? Okay. Because you hear the stories about, oh, crows pick up things and drop them. This was not a crow dropping something. And so they walked in they walked over, picked up the rock, and this is the rock. That'll give you some size reference for it. It's not big. It's, to them, this would be a marble or a pebble. But they recovered that, and I gave it to me because it was my first outing. And I actually have that rock right here. I keep it on my desk. It's got a date on it of when we found it or when it happened. I kind of keep it as a reminder. And that was my very, very first Bigfoot outing. Now, people have said, oh, it could have been somebody hiding over in there. And no, I will take you to this site. I will show you there is no place for anybody to hide. If they were going to hide, they would have had to have belly crawled in like a sniper. And I know the military uses Uwari for special operation training from time to time, but that was not going on. Robin Sage was not going on during this. And even if they had, Dave and David at that point had all the FLIR and thermal gear you could imagine. And we would have seen somebody. There was only one way they could have come in. We'd have seen them that way. The other edge of where we were backs up to a gully and a cliff. And you couldn't have climbed. If you wanted to climb that in the middle of the night, go for it. But the odds of somebody doing that just to perpetrate a hoax, not knowing us, not anything, I don't believe that. So again, simplest solution, like Sherlock Holmes always said, simplest solution, usually the correct one when you eliminate everything else. Bigfoot threw a rock.
For those that don't know, David had been researching that area forever.
For years.
If you take your experience with the rock, and you couple that with the experiences he's had, the time, the effort, the years that he's put in, then your own personal experiences after that, Johnny's experiences. I mean, every time we go out, literally something strange. So when you couple all of that together, you're literally telling a story. And I call David the godfather of the Bigfoot world. So, or you worry anyway. So
yeah,
he's out with the chat. So godfather.
Yeah. he's been around for a long time, and I do thank him for everything I learned from him for sure.
Yeah, he's a little ancient.
Yeah. But that was my very first outing, and it's gone even beyond that every time I go out now from there. So I feel pretty fortunate that I got to start off with that, because there's people that go for years and years and never have anything like that happen. So my thing now is I want to see one.
Yeah.
I've had one poke me in the shoulder through my tent. I've had all kinds of stuff happen, but I want to see one.
Yeah. So when you were out with us, and this is something that you brought to our attention, David said thanks, by the way.
Yeah.
We were out there. Actually, this is right when I was starting the channel up. We decided to do a field interview, and you're giving me some tips. You want to go into what happened with the audio and why you think it contributed? Because we had 2 recorders set out, and at the same time they had an interference.
Oh yeah, that was strange. We were kind of shooting some video, and again, that's video I still got to edit, because good Lord, I got a backlog. But we had 2 recorders set up, and we were recording the segment of you interviewing me and Johnny. And during the same instance of time on each recorder, we got this burst of just noise or something. I don't know what it was. The odds of that happening on both recorders, they're completely separate, not connected. That's something that's going on with that. That's not normal. I don't know what it was. I do think there was something there in that spot, because again, I was getting the tingly feeling. We went out and walked around. This is a perfect spot. There've been other people, and you guys have been there more than I have. There's something there. I'm not sure if it really wants us there or not, so I don't know. And again, that was a good time to do my talking to the woods thing. But yeah, the odds of something like that happening, they're just crazy, 1,000,000 to 1. We didn't have any radio gear that we were keying up, or anything that would do any RF interference. I got nothing on that one.
Just to add to that, we were out there last weekend. When you get total silence, it's usually a couple of minutes. Then we had hours of total silence. Then we walked up the road about 150 yards. Everything was alive. Crickets, frogs. Come back, silence. So there's something going on with that area, but you just you break it down in such a way that, yeah, it's over my head. But thank you.
Yeah, there's something going on there, and again, I don't know what. I'm not sure.
Same area. It's in the ballpark, the same area where the rock was thrown, where David has done years of research. So I mean, when you add it all together, and I bring that up to say this: when you add it all together, there's something going on in Uwharrie.
Yeah. The Uwharrie is an interesting place. Strange things happen there. There's all kinds of native legends about that place. You hear about the wild man in the woods, or the crazy old witch woman or something. Most legends have a basis in reality. So you take out crazy old man of the woods and put in Bigfoot, and it's kind of like, well, that then matches a lot of other stuff we've had happen or have heard about from other people. I've seen stuff in Uwharrie. I've seen orbs in Uwharrie. I don't know what they were. I have no clue. They were not fireflies. I have seen blue ghost fireflies in Uwharrie many times. And again, they're beautiful. If you've never seen them, it's like a scene out of the movie Avatar. The females are a neon blue and the males are white. And when they swarm, they don't fly up in the air like regular fireflies do. Or here in the South, we call them lightning bugs. So if you're not from around this area, you know what I'm talking about. But the females look like a carpet. They hug the terrain, go over the bushes, that kind of stuff. I shine in West Morris. Yep, West Morris is a fun place. They fly along the ground, and it's just like a blue neon carpet. And the males fly way up high out of the pack up in the air, and they're white, and they don't flash. They just stay on. So I've seen that. The lights that I've seen in Uwharrie were nothing close to that. They were not airplanes. They were in the woods. I don't know. Again, I have no clue. That's a question that that's why I'm out in the woods.
You have been involved in some high strangeness, and because of your excuse me, because of your attention to detail, you get invited with a lot of people to go a lot of places, and it's because of your character, and you know you have a lot of credit to your name.
Well,
And
thank
so
you.
you do get invited to a lot of places that the normal, average, everyday person like me wouldn't. And you have dealt with some high strangeness. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know if you want to go into that because I did interrupt you with your story, but
No, no,
that's
no.
something simple like that. So
I can tell you a little bit about this place, and David went with me. David Pardue went with me on this one as well. There is a place. I can't tell you where it is. I'll just be straight up. To get there, to go in, we had to sign non-disclosure agreements, and I gave my word. And so, sorry, you're not getting anything out of me as far as where it is. But I can tell you a little bit about what goes on there. And there is actually a book that's, hang on a second. It's called The Meadow Project. I make no money from any sales from this book, but I am the Terry in this book. And this is some of the strangest stuff I have ever seen. Pretty much anything that you can imagine except the Loch Ness Monster has shown up in this area, and there is a swampy spot there. So if you're looking for something that's a good read, this is it. And again, this is one of those things where had I not been there, I wouldn't have believed it either. So we got invited to go to this place. We had no idea of what was going on there. We found out later that we were actually brought in kind of as a control, if you will, because we went looking for Bigfoot, thinking this is going to be about Bigfoot, and got down there, and it's like, oh, there is so much more going on down here. So there's a meadow down there. You guys have probably heard of Skinwalker Ranch. This is the Skinwalker Ranch of the East Coast. I kid you not. David and I actually saw a portal open there. It's on recording. David was the person who saw it. We were out in this meadow, sitting there. There were four of us in this group. There were three teams, and then an Overwatch team. There were four of us in our team, and we had gone into the meadow from our campsite, and we're supposed to go to another position, but we heard something. We passed the swampy area going in, and we heard something. So we called in on the radio and said, "Hey guys, this is Team 3. Can we hold, or Team 4? I'm sorry. Can we hold position where we are? We think we just heard something, and we need to check it out for a minute." And they said, "Yeah, go ahead." So we checked. We think it was probably a beaver. It was a tail slap that beavers do sometimes. We saw something up in a tree and figured it was a beaver. So we just said, "Okay, well, we're going to discount that one, but can we hold where we are, because we're already here, and we can see." The idea was every team could see at least one more team, so everybody always had eyes on everybody else. So we're sitting there, and we're all facing the 4 cardinal points of the compass. And David and I had been out earlier that morning and walked around in this meadow, and that's something I've learned to do, and he does as well. You go out in the daylight and you go, okay, that's a big tree, that's going to look like a Bigfoot tonight, and that's a big rock, that's going to look like Bigfoot tonight, and that's a big bush, that's going to look like Bigfoot tonight. So you kind of get in your head what's there, and it makes it easier when you see something that looks weird. You can kind of go back and go, well, that wasn't there before. So we're sitting there, and David is sitting to one side of me, and I don't have any thermal, any night vision, no nothing. I just got eyeball mark 1, and I'm kind of the control for our group. So I'm sitting there and it's dark and can't really see too much. And I hear David beside of me go, "What is that square thing down there in the field?" And it didn't really register what he was saying. It took a minute because my brain, didn't lock up on what he was saying. And I hear him say it again. "What is that square thing down there in the field?" And at that point, it dawns on me, there is no square thing down there in the field. We came down here earlier and there's nothing there. So I just kind of leaned over and said, "What you got?" He said, "I don't know, but it's getting bigger." And so I leaned over and looked through his FLIR, and sure as the world, there was a big square in the middle of the field that was glowing. It looked kind of misty. If you took one of those frosted shower curtains and shone a light through the back of it, that's kind of what it looked like. Not quite, but it was getting bigger. And I'm just looking at it going, "What in the heck is this?" And so the person next to us had better night vision than David had, and hers recorded. So she just looked over and said, "What you got?" And he told her, and he said, "I don't know what I got, but point your camera down this way and see what you get." You could see it clear as day. I could see nothing with my naked eye while I was there. So I'm sitting there and it's not there. And we saw this thing. We called it in to the Overwatch team, and they said, "Everybody hold position. We're coming down." They had every intention of trying to walk through whatever this was to see what was going on. Every time they would get close to it, it would close down and reappear somewhere else further away. There is one point where I don't know if they actually went into it or if their heat signatures were obscured by this thing because it was so overpowering. It's kind of like if you put a 20-watt light bulb in front of a 100-watt light bulb, you don't see the 20-watt light bulb anymore. So I can't say definitively if that happened or if it didn't, but at some point they disappeared. They disappeared from the FLIR. So again, were they still there and they were just washed out by the background light being brighter, or did they go into this? I don't know. But we had, at that point, it was like, okay, we're going back to base camp. And while this was going on, base camp called in and said, "We need to speak to," and gave the name of the team leader, the whole team leader. "There is a person here who is demanding to speak with him that says that they have information about Bigfoot, and they need to speak to you right now." Now, where we were, it was a campsite, but it was pretty remote. Campsite in name only. Don't know how anyone would have known that we were there. And so it was like, well, okay, let's pack up and go in. My job going back was to keep my hand on the shoulder of the girl who had gotten the recording of it and not let her out of my sight. So we were trucking back down this trail to get to base camp. When we got there, everybody kind of went back and got something, got a soda or got something, something to eat, and was kind of decompressing and trying to figure out what we had just seen. Well, the leader of the group went over, and there was this woman who had shown up in our camp out of the blue. Her teenage son had driven her there, and she, at first glance, appeared to be drunk. But the more we watched and the more the guy interviewed her, I don't think she was drunk. She was just, it was very strange. It fit the characteristic of what people have described as men in black. One of the characteristics is it's like they don't understand social norms or anything like that. Because during the conversation, this woman just all of a sudden stood up, walked over to front of our fireplace and peed right in front of everybody. No big deal. It's not like anything's going on. And we're all looking at each other like, okay, this is really strange. Well, she starts telling the guy who's in charge of the team, "Oh yeah, I went to school with you. And I know, and you've got to come with me right now, because there's this place that there's Bigfoot there, and you need to see them. And I'm the only one that knows where this is, and there's only one way to get to it, and you got to come right now." And so we're all starting to look around and go, "Yeah, we don't know you. You showed up here. We don't know how you found us, and you're telling us that we got to follow you to a place where we don't know where we're going, never been there. There's a one way in, and we got to go right now." I'm thinking, no, that's probably not going to happen. So during the course of this conversation, she keeps telling this guy, "Yeah, I went to college with you." And so he says, "Really? Well, do you know so and so and so and so?" "Oh yeah, I was in that class of, I know the professor." And she named off all kinds of stuff that you couldn't just get out of books or going on Google. She knew this place and swore that she had gone there with him. He had no recollection of her. So, we're still all sitting around going, "Okay, this is weird." In the meantime, this black pickup truck kind of quietly pulls in to one of the sites up above us, and has no lights on, and just backs in and sits there. At that point, a couple of our members kind of disappeared back into the darkness of the woods. Some of these guys are ex-military, so I have no doubt where they were headed, and they were going to go keep an eye on this truck. Could have been a redneck hookup, who knows? People sometimes will go pull in, who knows? But they never did anything. They just sat there through the whole thing. The woman at some point decided that we weren't going to come with her, so she just gets back in her car and her son drives her off. Later on, we found out down the road, sometime later, that the group leader had actually found her, because she gave him her name, and he found her and contacted her and said, "Hey, yeah, I was the guy that you were talking to in the camp that night, and I just wanted to get in touch with you." And she said, "I have no idea. Who are you? What are you talking about?" She had absolutely no recollection of it. I mean, and this guy, I'm not going to say too much, but he has served in a position where he is pretty good at interviewing people. So I don't have any doubts that, he would, being in law enforcement, you understand that law enforcement is going to ask you the same question 4 different ways to make sure that your story is correct. That's what he did with her, and every single one of them, it was dead on the money, but she had no recollection of any of that. So that was some weirdness. Also in that same area, on another occasion, we were up on a ridge. We had climbed up this ridge to go to do a recon of an area that these guys had found on Google Earth, and wanted to go survey in person and see if it would make another good research area. So unbeknownst to us, the Forestry Service had just done a controlled burn in the area, and we're basically climbing up the side of a mountain that's a foot deep in ash. And you take 3 steps up, you slide back 2 steps. I was to the point of actually thinking, okay, I'm going to drop my pack, tie a piece of paracord to it, scramble up as far as I can, and then pull my pack up and find a tree and keep doing that. But we all made it. It was kind of arduous, but we made it. We were absolutely whooped when we got up to where we were going to make camp for the night and got to the area. And there was a no longer used Forestry Service roadbed there. So most everybody else were in hammocks, and I and I think 1 or 2 other people were in tents. So the people with hammocks just, we're on the side of a cliff at this point. They're hanging out over the cliff edge in their hammocks, and I'm in a tent in the roadbed because I know nobody's coming that way. So at the time I had this big USMC ILB pack. It's basically a dump sack It's huge. And of course, I'm the guy carrying the cameras, so my pack is always heavier than everybody else's. And I was struggling really bad to get up this mountain. And so the little tent that I stay in is, hang on a second. This is the tent that I usually pack up with me. It's pretty small, and I really didn't have room for this pack to go in it. So I left my pack sitting outside my tent because it was supposed to be a nice night. And there were no trees over this tent anywhere near it. There were no limbs laying around. There was no nothing. I just left my pack outside of my tent. And during the night, I woke up, and one of the things I learned in the Boy Scouts, and yes, I was a Boy Scout. One of the things I learned in the Boy Scouts is if you're out in the middle of the woods camping and something wakes you, you wake up in the middle of the night, lay still, be quiet, and see what woke you up just for a minute, because it could be wildlife. You don't know. So I'm just laying there and don't hear anything. And I saw what appeared to be someone shining a flashlight or a headlamp on my tent. And my first thought was, oh, well, nature called, somebody's out of their tent and they're just out. So no big deal. Went right back to sleep. I got up the next morning and got out of my tent, and I found this. Now, if you notice, that was my backpack. If you notice, there's a stick woven through the hip belt. That stick was not there the night before. That stick was nowhere around my tent the night before. That was put there. I have no idea what went on. There were no limbs that could have fallen. There were no trees that could have fallen or limbs fallen out of them. There was nothing. Where'd that stick come from? Did somebody see me struggling? And I'm not trying to make this about me, but I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. Did somebody see me struggling, climbing up that mountain, and figure, oh, this guy's having a hard time. Let's give him a walking stick. So I don't know, but to this day, you tell me where that came from. You tell me how that got there. So I took a picture of this. We had to get back pretty quick because we were getting picked up by a ride to get back to our base camp. So we just broke camp the next morning and took off. Got back to camp, and we were kind of cleaning up and having our evening meal. And I said, so by the way, who was out of their tent last night? Nobody was out of their tent last night. Nobody got out of their tents. But one guy, I think it was David, said, I think I saw 3 red lights. They were way off in the distance. I'm not sure what they were. I was sort of dozing. I don't know. But because where we were, you could see the next mountain range. It was that clear, and it was a clear night. So no clue about what that was about. But nobody got out of their tents. So I called and checked around with a few of my Bigfoot friends and said, what the heck was this with the lights? Come to find out, that's something very rare called flashlight eye shine, where they supposedly can actually project light from their eyes. Now, how that works, this is where I got to say, I don't know, because you would think that if you could make light come out of your eyes, you couldn't see. You'd be blind. So I have no clue. But I had somebody tell me, yeah, that's pretty rare. But yeah, it does happen. So again, that's one of those things where I got to just shake my head and go, I have no idea what this was. I can describe what I saw, but I can't tell you what it is because I don't know. And this is another place where just weird stuff happens.
Does anyone have any questions in the chat? Or Terry, I think they've been asking them throughout the chat. You keyed them as they came.
Yep.
But now was that the same place where the lady showed up? That was the same.
It was same area, exact same area. Like I said, it's the Skinwalker Ranch of the East Coast. And that was the portal thing. Again, going back to my wife, that was that was one of those deals where it's like, my wife is going to think I'm absolutely crazy. How in the heck, if I tell her about this, the next morning there's going to be guys with a white coat that buttons up backwards waiting on me outside the house. It's, and again, if I had not been there to see that, I wouldn't have believed it either. Before then, if you started talking about portals to me, I'd just go, oh, bless your heart, portals. Yeah. Okay.
Bless your heart.
No. And I don't know that if it was a portal, because I don't know what it was. I can describe to you what I saw. The only thing that fits is portal. So I don't know.
Okay, so I've talked to several people that were out there with you, and if you go back, you can watch Kristen Payton's show.
Yep.
Trey, that actually author Trey Hudson has actually, it's all the accounts. I mean, you tell it in your own words, but
they're documented though.
Verified it, yeah, it's been verified.
They're documented,
and it's just a matter of getting out in your environment. And actually, you guys were chasing a legend or a local folklore.
Yeah, there are all kinds of tales about that area. Again, I'm gonna do this one more time in case people are interested. I make no money from this, but this book there's a lot of stuff in this book that you just start looking. The deeper you get into it, you definitely go down the rabbit hole. And I have no clue what it was. That night, I think it was this trip. It may have been another one. I don't remember, but David and I were sleeping. I had driven down in my little Toyota RAV4, and it was such a weird experience. We slept in the RAV4. I think this was the night we saw the stuff and had the weird people that had the Men in Black stuff go on. We were actually sleeping there. I had the car keys up on the dash. I had my little mini pew pew sitting right on the console. And we were sleeping in the front seats thinking if anything goes down, we're getting out of here. And that night I had a dream. This is going to sound crazy, but I had a dream that about a dozen Bigfoot came walking out of the woods and stood around my vehicle and all faced outward. And we could not see out the windows and see what was going on. And I have no clue what that was about, but weird stuff happens here.
That is pretty wild. I know Trey was telling me that someone else had went back. And I say Trey like I actually know him. He was just on my show. I don't know him, but
yeah,
he said that a guest went out there with him, and she had some pretty strange dreams too.
Yeah,
but they were significant enough for what was going on. But when you look at the backstory of some things going on, it just kind of
There's so much of a history there. It's really hard to discount, especially with all the research that they have done. When you put all this stuff together, Kristen was the one that I had my hand on her shoulder getting out of the woods. There's so much stuff that taken individually, you could kind of maybe say, yeah, right, whatever. I don't know how many incidents have happened there, and it's documented in this book. You can talk to other witnesses that have been there. Stuff happens. I mean, I got no explanation for a lot of it. This is one of those where I have to say, I don't know. And that's why I'm out in the woods. I want to know what's going on.
So let's move past that. Are there any other experiences that we were kind of on a roll there and I just kept interrupting? Is there any other experiences that you want to talk about?
How much time we got?
It's your show. You take all the time you want.
No, I don't. It's your show. I told
you.
Sir.
Well, let's go for it. Let's roll. Go for it.
All right. I'll give you one more. I'll give you a good one. The night I got poked in my shoulder through my tent wall by a Bigfoot. I was in North Georgia at a campground that it was called a campground because it had bear boxes and a fire pit. But you had to drive across a creek just to get to the parking area and then walk across a bridge to get to the camping area. And Arla was with me on this one. And so we're all kind of, again, I did the bait thing. I looked around and went, if I was Bigfoot and I wanted to watch us, where would I be? Where's a good spot? And I found one and set up my tent and there was a trail that led back into the woods behind my tent. And we're camped sort of, there's a river on our a big stream, small river, take your choice, to one side of us. And then there's just the North Georgia woods behind us, which if you've never been in the North Georgia woods, you can take 3 steps back into the mountain laurels and you are gone. If you stand there quietly, nobody will see you or hear you. So one of the things I've started doing is when I go out like that, I always carry a trash bag with me because people suck and leave trash everywhere. And again, the respect thing, I pick up trash. So Arla came and helped me. We were actually walking around picking up trash back behind my tent. And we noticed there was this big, huge fallen old growth oak tree that had come down and made kind of a barrier between us and the woods. So we're picking up trash and just talking and having a good time and get as much trash as we can carry out, take it on out, walk back past my tent. And so just thinking, okay, no big deal. So we all kind of gather around the campfire and have our evening meal. And we're sitting there, and I've known Arla long enough that Arla has some things called Arla speak. There's a few things that she says that you kind of your ears perk up when you hear it. One of the things is she'll say, "I think I'm going to take a walk." What that usually means, I've come to learn, is we got company. I think we got company. So we're sitting there, and I hear Arla say, "I'm going to take a walk." And so I just kind of look over and said, "You mind if I go with you?" And she said, "Oh, come on, let's go." So we get up, start walking. Again, this is one of those cases, no headlights, no flashlights, nothing. We're walking through the woods. Arla's walking like she's got built-in night vision, just zoom. And I'm stumbling and tripping, trying to keep up with her. And I have no idea where we're going. It's dark. And I notice that we passed my tent. And it's like, oh, okay, we're going back to that fallen tree. So I'm like, okay, I trust Arla. I've been in the woods with Arla before. Let's go see what goes on. So we're walking along, and we get to sort of where that fallen tree was, and she stops. So I stop, and I'm standing beside her, and it's dark. It's the dark you only get in the Georgia woods. And she's standing there, and I hear her say, "They're coming. They're coming. Oh, they're here. There they are. There they are. Oh, look at you guys. Oh, there's a big male, and there's a little girl. Oh, aren't you cute? Aren't you cute?" And there's a young one there. She's standing there talking to him. I can see nothing. I have I'm just like, okay, this is okay. So let's just stand here and shut up and see what happens. So she's talking to him, and I'm thinking, I trust Arla. I've been around her enough. I don't think she's hoodooing me here. So I just lean over to her and say, "Arla, I can't see them like you can." And she said, "Well, you're not supposed to right now." And that one, I had to make the Scooby-Doo noise on. I was like, "Whoa." So it's like, oh, okay. So she's talking to him. She's talking to him and just carrying on a conversation. And then she says, "Oh, they're leaving. They're leaving. Oh, goodbye. I see you. Be careful. Goodbye. Goodbye." And so we walk off, and I'm going back by my tent. Now my head is spinning at this point. So it's late, and I just say, "Arla, I'm gonna climb in my tent, take a nap and go to sleep. I'll see you in the morning if that's okay." She said, "Yeah, no problem. See you at breakfast." So I crawl in the tent. I get in my sleeping bag, and the little tent that I showed you, it's pretty narrow. So I'm laying there on my side, and I'm thinking, what in the heck just happened? That is nuts. I got nothing. I don't think I trust Arla again. I don't think she's hoodooing me. Why would she? So I'm laying there, and from behind my tent, I hear whoomp, 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 whoomp. It's footsteps. It's getting louder. It's coming toward my tent. I've heard squirrels and mice jump around in the leaves behind your tent. I've heard things walk around. This wasn't that. This was heavy bipedal footsteps, and it's coming right up to my tent. And I'm laying there, and I am wide awake. I promise you. You hear people talk about, oh, that might have been a dream. No, sir. No, ma'am. I was as awake then as I am right now talking to you. I'm laying there, and I am freaking out. Bigfoot's walking up behind my tent. Oh my God, Bigfoot's walking behind my tent. What's he gonna do? Oh my God. Oh my God. This is not happening. This is not happening. And he gets to the edge of the tent and he stops. And I'm just laying there in this little tent thinking, I'm dead. I'm done. He's gonna just scoop me up, carry me off like Albert Otzman. I'm done. And from behind my tent, I hear almost like a sigh, like, what am I gonna do with this one? And about that time, I feel through my tent wall into my shoulder, poke. It was not a dog's nose. It was not a stick. It was a finger. I could feel the nail on the finger. The finger was about as big as two of my fingers, poked me square in the shoulder blade. So now I am freaking absolutely out. Your mind is just, your mind won't let you believe what's going on, because it's trying to keep you from having a nervous breakdown. It's trying to protect you. And I'm laying there like, oh my God, I'm dead. He's going to carry me off. He's going to, what do I do? What do I do? What's he going to do? And then it dawned on me all of a sudden, well, Terry, he's not doing anything. He's poking you in the shoulder. Oh my God, Bigfoot's poking me in the shoulder. He's behind my tent and he's poking me in the shoulder. This is so cool. This is so cool. And at that point, the finger goes whoop back out. And I never hear him leave. I heard him walk up. I never hear him leave. He's just gone. And I say he because you got the feeling whatever it was massive. If Andre the Giant had strapped cinder blocks onto his feet and stomped up behind my tent, that might have come sort of close to what this was. And then all of a sudden, it's just gone. So I'm laying there and I go to sleep. I just fall fast asleep. I sleep the best I've slept in the woods in a long time. I get up, coming out of my tent. I unzip the door and I pop out of the tent. Just, oh my God, you guys aren't going to believe this. And there's some people sitting around the fire ring. So I'm just walking. I'm like probably screaming, you guys aren't going to believe this. You guys aren't going to believe this. Bigfoot poked me in the shoulder last night. I got to tell you about this. And I see Arla sitting at the camp, at the tent or at the fire ring. And she's just grinning. And it's like, you knew. How did you know? You knew. I mean, unbelievable. So, was it because we were there showing respect, picking up litter? I don't know. From that point on, anytime I go in the woods, I carry a trash bag and I pick up litter. But, that's another one where I got nothing. Nothing else fits. Again, it was not a dog's nose. It was not a stick. It was not a person trying to fool me. Now, can I say that Bigfoot, can I stand up in a court of law and say Bigfoot poked me in the shoulder through my tent? No, because I did not see it happen. I didn't see him doing it. But what else fits? I don't know. So, go figure. And I often wonder what would have happened if I had had the presence of mind to just unzip my tent and stick my head out. What would I have seen? But the more I think about it, I don't think I would have been ready to see it at that point. I think that would have been too much. So I don't know if I have no clue, but the way it happened, it just makes me think, at that point, I probably wasn't ready for that. Now I will say, I don't mean to be indiscreet, but I do carry a special pair of underwear with me when I go out in the woods, just in case I do see one, because I have no idea what I'm going to do. But I really want to see one at this point.
I've heard that before, but I want to touch on a few things you said. Your mind will protect you until you're ready to accept what you saw, and it also will make you second guess what you saw. And as far as litter in the forest, I'm so sick of it. I mean, I wonder how some people's homes look, but we picked up litter when we were out in the field up in Uwharrie, but the thing is, that's what people don't give away, or one of the reasons people don't give away where they research, because
Yeah.
people will go and they will destroy your area, and they will hang some disgusting things from trees because somebody
Oh yeah.
said something. And it's people just do not take care of our forest and our land or our water, and some people are just need to stay out of the woods.
Yeah. It breaks my heart because that's, that's where we came from. We should have more respect for that. There are other things besides Bigfoot living in the woods. We need to be respectful of that because that's their home. If we destroy that, we're going to destroy them with it. Um, and that's crazy. I don't, that, why would you do that? I don't understand people that don't get that. I just don't know.
Well, Terry, before at the end of all of my shows, I always let people do a tribute before I go there. I just want to tell everybody in the chat, thank you for keeping the chat pleasant, and thank you for coming to support the show. I appreciate every one of you. You guys are some really great guys. I've gotten to know quite a bit of you, and the respect you show in the chat, and just the humor and just being good people. I really appreciate it. And Terry, I really appreciate you coming on. So I'm going to give you the floor, and I'm going to let you pay tribute to someone.
Okay. Well, I will just say thank you to my wife for putting up with me and all my foolishness. I will also give her a shout out. She has a yoga practice online called Bunny Dog Yoga. It's all one word, bunnydogyoga.com. You go to her website, check her out. She's a fantastic yoga teacher. It's named in honor of our dog Bunny, who is no longer with us. But if you're interested in yoga, go check her out. She is just incredible, and again, she puts up with all of my stuff and lets me do that. And occasionally I'll get an eye roll once in a while, but hey, I don't, that's fine. And I guess I would just like to thank all the people that I have researched with along the way, who've taught me stuff. You're never too old to learn anything. And again, if my opinion differs from yours, that's okay. I'm okay with it as long as you're civil and respectful about it. I'm okay with that. There are as many opinions about what Bigfoot is as there are people to have opinions about Bigfoot. If you want to catch up with me, you can find me on rockhillbigfoot.com. You can get to my social media stuff from there and my YouTube channel. There's not a lot on there yet because, again, I've only just gotten to the point where I've got time now in life to start editing footage that I've shot. So there'll be more coming. If you want to see me in person, I'm going to be at the Western Carolina Bigfoot Festival in Marion, North Carolina on Saturday, May 18th at 1:30. And it's a great festival. And again, if you live anywhere around Westminster, South Carolina, go to the South Carolina Bigfoot Festival. You will have a ball. They are nice people. I can't thank them enough. That was one of the first places that I ever started speaking. Up in Cumnock, North Carolina. So, want to thank those people for having me. And I want to thank all of your listeners for putting up with me. And again, it still amazes me that all you guys are interested in hearing me talk about Bigfoot. I never got into this to be a speaker. It's just kind of worked out that way, and I'm happy to share information. That's what we're here for. That's how we get along. And if we respect each other and respect the woods and respect ourselves as well, I think we do a whole lot better in this world. And thank you for having me on your show tonight. It's been an honor. And I'm not hearing you right now.
Oh, well, that's because it's the Not So Perfect Bigfoot show, and that's what I
That's
do,
okay.
Terry.
That's
you
okay.
push your wife's YouTube channel one more time.
Yes, absolutely. bunnydogyoga.com. It's a video on demand site. You can go there and you can pay for yoga classes that are already recorded. You can get a membership, watch anytime you want, as many as you want. We're adding new videos as fast as we can. She also does live streaming video and does in-person video. And she's a fantastic yoga instructor. I just can't say enough about her. I'm so proud of her. She's a YT. She's going to beat me. I should know this. YT 500 instructor, which basically means she can teach other yoga instructors, and she loves what she does, and it shows.
All right.
So that's bunnydogyoga.com.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for doing that, Terry. And thank you, everyone in the chat and everyone that jumped in. And I hope everyone has a blessed evening and enjoy your Monday tomorrow. All right. If you can enjoy your Monday. All right, guys. Bye.